Okay, let's do this. Welcome. Ultimately today, I'm gonna try to make this as succinct as possible. This usually takes a good hour and maybe 8 minutes, 10 minutes. When I'm working on the face-to-face class, I'm gonna do my best to help you write dynamic speeches, and I'm gonna try to do it in about 30 minutes. We'll see how long this video is. Whenever I get asked to write a speech, whenever I get asked to speak, I always think about my brand. What do I want to bring to the table? Regardless if it's an induction, regardless if it's a TED Talk, regardless if it's graduation. I spoke at a wedding once. Whatever it is, I think about my brand, and you have to do this. You have to think about your brand. What is it that you bring to the table? I am going to make it motivational. I told a student, my goal is not to make you motivational students, but you should be motivated when you're speaking. You should get other people motivated to buy into your brand or to listen to whatever you're talking about. But you have to ask yourself, what is my brand? If it's humorous, make every single speech humorous. Find a way to use humor in your speeches. If it is super creative, then be creative. If it's wordplay or whatever the thing, whatever your style, whatever your brand is, make sure you start with that. Wherever they ask you to speak, I don't care if they ask you to speak about chapter 2 in your, in your history class, you have to have this lens, okay, how can I take what they're asking me to do and do it my way, do it my style? That's what we gotta start with. Okay, if they ask you to speak, they're gonna give you a topic. They might say, hey, we want you to speak about freedom. Well, what about freedom? We want you to speak about chapter 2. Well, what about chapter 2? We want you to speak about water. Well, what about water? We want you to speak about teamwork. Well, what about teamwork? That's just the topic. The topic is very broad. They say, hey, we want you to come and talk to us about relationships. Okay, but what about relationships? The topic is always broad, super vague, okay? But you get to decide what is going to be the message. The message is one clear sentence. That's the whole core of your speech. If they don't remember anything else, they remember this one line. Does that make sense? Your speech could be 30 minutes, but they're gonna remember this one line. Everything points back to this one thing. You could think of it as a thesis, but I would say a thesis usually has 3 points in it, but ultimately, everything hinges on this one idea. For example, let me say it this way. It's one clear sentence, one clear short sentence. Shouldn't be a long sentence. If it's too long. In fact, let me do it this way. You should be able to run past somebody at full speed and yell out your speech and them understand it with just this message. Because the whole speech really boils down to this one thing. For example, a good example is, get back up again. Okay, I could run past somebody and yell, get back up again. And they can understand, okay, cool, I guess I need to get back up again. I don't know why this guy's running, but I understood the message. If you said, you are enough, okay? The whole speech is gonna have lots of other things, but everything goes back to you are enough. That's the message. You could run past somebody at full speed, you are enough. Okay, yeah, I am enough. That's how short it needs to be. I'll give you another one. If the topic is water, let's say they ask you to talk about chapter 2, and chapter 2 deals with water. Let's see, whatever class this is for. Okay, well, what about water? What do I want to talk about? Everyone in the class is talking about chapter 2. Everyone's talking about water. I've got to differentiate myself. What message do I have about water? You might just say, drink more water. Okay. Or, your water is killing you. Ooh, okay, that's real to the point. Your water is killing you. Because maybe there's something in the water that's causing this, or whatever the case is, okay? I could run past somebody at full speed. Drink more water. Or, your water is killing you. Good example. Bad example, and this is what people do. They'll say, this is a bad example. Well, today I just want to talk about more water because okay, so there's lots of types of water. So we have to the water that's in your system. Okay, see, we're made of water, and the water so like the. What are we even talking about? What are you talking about? And a lot of times it's hard to have a message when you don't have a message. I gotta stop right there. It's hard for your audience to understand your message when you don't even have a message. Everything in your speech goes back to this one line. You've got to start there. Think about a ship. Sometimes they have sails, but a lot of times they have rudders. That rudder is in the back, and the rudder guides the whole ship. The message is a rudder. The ship is going a certain direction based on where the rudder wants it to go. Your whole speech has to go a certain direction based on that message. Okay, boom. Well, now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. You should have, actually I'll talk about 3 points here in a second. Generally you'll have 3 points. Sometimes you might have 2, it depends on how long you're speaking. If I'm only speaking for 2 minutes, I might just have 2 points. Or I might just have 1 point and I'm going to really boil it down on that point, maybe more examples, okay? But I'll get to that. There are 6 elements that now that I know what my message is, now that I know what it is, if I said, okay, I'll do this in real time for you. If they ask me to talk about relationships, that's the topic. The topic is not the message. In fact, the message does not have to have the topic in it. For example, I said here, the topic was water, and the message has, your water is killing you, don't drink my water. Both of those have the word water in it. You don't have to have the word from the topic in the message, not necessarily. Okay, I'll prove it to you. For example, let's say they say, talk about relationships. Okay, cool, all right. I'm gonna talk to a group of students or a group of faculty members, or I'm gonna talk to future athletes, whatever. I'm gonna talk to them about relationships. Okay, that's what they called me in. They said, Mr. Harris, we want an undefeated speaker to come talk to us about relationships. Cool, okay. Now I've gotta get in my zone, my lens. What do I wanna talk about? Perfect. I'm gonna say, break the cycle today. I can shorten that to break the cycle, but I want to use that word today in there. Cycle. Break the cycle today. Okay. I could run past somebody at full speed. Break the cycle today! I could run past somebody at full speed, okay? My whole speech is going to have lots of other things in it, but everything that I'm writing has to go back to breaking the cycle today. I could have just said break the cycle, but I want to use that word today. There are 6 elements that your speech has to have. There are your attention getter, and this could be a speech that's 3 minutes, 2 minutes. It could be a speech that's 30 minutes, whatever the case is, but they should have these things in there. Attention getter. Attention getter is the very first words out of your mouth. Do not start with, so before I begin, because that's you beginning. But before I start, no, that is you starting. As soon as you open your mouth, the speech has begun in our mind. If you need a second, if you want to write something on the board, don't say anything. Just write it on the board. We're watching. If you need a second, you go up to the side and then you start, that's fine. But as soon as you start talking, the speech is already beginning. Don't start with, so my name is. Don't start with, hello, my name. Somebody generally has already introduced you. Generally, if I said, please welcome Lisa Johnson, clap, 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 clap. And then Lisa Johnson gets up there, hi, my name's Lisa. Yeah, we just said it. Hi, my name's Michelle Michaels. Hi, Michelle. It's all fluff. Start. We've already talked about this, okay? How do I get somebody's attention? Glad you asked. You already know you can start with a bold statement. Something bold, something very bold. You can also start with a fire line. You can start with a question, but if you start with a question, you have to ask yourself, is this question gonna get their attention, or is this question just me talking? For example, a bad example. By a show of hands, how many of you guys are from San Antonio? Well, knowing where we are, knowing where I teach, knowing where you're a student, you could assume that most people are from San Antonio. This is just a question. This is not an attention-getting question. Does that make sense? Think about when you're asking the question, does this really draw people in? How many of you guys have cats? Well, man, no. If no one raises their hand, now what are you gonna do? Talking about relationships, might ask a rhetorical question. What if the reason he cheated on you isn't because he doesn't love you, it's because you didn't love yourself enough to leave him? And maybe this is a cycle. You've been going through this cycle of relationships, and today it's time to break the cycle. Everyone say that with me. Break the cycle. Say it one more time. Break the cycle. I want you to say it louder. Break the cycle. And when are you going to do it? Today. Do you see the difference there? Where I'm in control, but I'm doing this pacing thing where I'm slowing down some of my words. And all of that is a part of that attention here. Okay. You can start with a joke, sure. Think of the difference if you're going to start with, if you're talking to third graders, or if you're talking to 13-year-olds, or if you're talking to 30-year-olds, there's levels there. You can start with a joke. You can start with a stat or fact, something that's alarming. You can start with some sort of activity. That's fine. Whatever you do, think of how this is how I start my speech, and I'm going to draw people in. Now I have this idea called stacking. I want you to write that to the side. Stacking. You should be able to do multiple things in just your attention getter. For example, I'll just walk it all the way through. Can I have all of my men in the audience go ahead and stand up? Real fast, faster than that. All my men in the audience stand up. Now ladies, I'm looking at you, ladies, this is true. Did you know that according to different research we have here at Palo Alto College, 1 out of every 4 young male will drop out of college in the spring semester? Did you hear that? 1 out of every 4, 25%. Look around you. 1 out of every 4, 25% gone. Why do they do this? Some of them drop out because they're looking for quick cash over long-term careers. Some of these men drop out because these men don't have mentors in their life, and it's hard to be something you've never seen. Some of these men go to college because they want to be the first in their generation to be able to go to college and break that cycle. And then what happens? They have a kid they didn't even ask for. They have issues that aren't even supposed to be a part of them. And then they went to school to break the cycle, and now they're back in the cycle again. And they don't finish. They don't graduate. And the cycle continues. Today, we're going to talk about how we can get all 4 of these men to graduate on time with purpose, and how that affects our ladies in the audience as well too. Have a seat, we're going to talk about it. What did I do there? Well, first, how long did that take me? 35 seconds, probably. That's not even my whole speech. Stacking. Everyone say that with me. Where you are, stacking. In my attention getter, what did I do? I had a bold statement, a fire line, I asked questions, I had a stack, and I had my guys stand up. I was still addressing everybody in the audience. I did all that in 35 seconds. Stacking, you should be doing multiple people. Other teachers, they'll say, okay, good, you asked a question. Okay, good. Story's not on here. Okay, good, you started with a story. I love stories. Okay, you did one of these things, but I'm challenging you to do more of them in a short amount of time. That is what sets you apart from everyone else. That was just my attention getter. That was just my attention getter. Do you see? And I did lots of these things in just that. Okay, I'm gonna erase this. Your AG stands for what? Your attention getter. Okay, the next thing, the E stands for engaging your audience. Engaging your audience. Okay, well you already know. Why should I engage the audience? They've got to be a part of it. I'm hoping that you're saying this out loud, even though we're on, come on, I need it. You should engage the audience because why? And then what else? Give me 2 reasons. I should engage the audience because the first one you said, and the second one is why? When you're engaging your audience, you're going to have them do something to prove something. Okay, say that with me. I'm going to have my audience do something to prove something. Your audience should never just be sitting listening to you. Even when you're watching this video, you should not just be sitting listening to me. You should be taking notes. You should be responding back to me. There's going to be questions I ask you, and you're just going to say them out loud. You are a part of this. You're a part of this. You want your audience to be a part of it. I already know all of this. You don't. When you get up and give a speech, you know your whole speech. It's your speech, which means there's no purpose if the speech just stays here or here. The speech has got to go out because every speech is for the audience. Every speech is for them. Give the speech to them. Make them be a part of it. If you were giving a speech about CPR, at some point your audience has to do what? Okay. How can I engage my audience? You can't ask questions. I think it's better if you ask the questions because you get to control the conversation. A lot of people at the very end of their speech say, do you guys have any questions? False. No. No. I'm going to ask my audience questions to make sure they've been paying attention to me, to make sure they're right there with me. But I'm not going to say, do you have any questions? Because then I don't know what I'm going to get. You can allow for some questions, but maybe have them write them down. Maybe you answer them. For example, I spoke for 2 hours, and I wanted to do this. Have them write questions on a sheet of paper, and then just throughout the speech, throughout this long speech, it was 2 hours, I just answer a question from the audience and I go there. A lot of times I'd already answered some of those questions, but I want you to just be intentional. For example, okay, watch this. Stacking, say stacking. Say it one more time, say stacking. Okay, imagine I just gave that attention getter. I can now ask a question to a young male or female. I said, hey, Michael, how does this make you feel knowing that people will drop out of college, particularly young men, 25%? That's an alarming rate. He'll give me his response. Then I'll choose somebody from the other side of the class to make sure people are still paying attention, because now you don't know who I'm going to choose. Now I call on Veronica. Veronica, what would you say to Michael if you knew that he was considering dropping out of college? She might say, I don't know what to say, or I don't know what she's gonna say, but I'm gonna use that. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to now turn to your partner, and I want you all to, the 1, 2, 1, 2, I'm gonna count you out, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The ones you're gonna be dropping out of college, tell the number 2 why you're dropping out of college. Number 2 is I want you to listen, and when the number 1 is done, then I want you to respond with strategies on why they should continue, or why you believe they could, or how they could rectify some of those issues. Now, what have I done? I started with a question, I had a follow-up question. Now I'm gonna have my whole audience act it out and practice and see. And now I haven't given them the skills. That is true, I have not given them skills on what to be able to say, but now at least we're practicing it. And now we're actually walking it through. Remember the CPR, now we're actually trying to walk it through. That's what we're talking about. Stacking. I asked 1 question, I asked 2 questions, and then I turned it into an activity. Stacking. Okay. You have to have your audience prove something to you. When you are taking notes, at the end of it, usually a teacher will have you take a test. When you're speaking, you're giving your audience the test. Make them do the work. I told students all the time, if you get up here and you're feeling really nervous and anxious, it's too much you. It's too much you. You've got to put it back on the audience. The audience should be up. Maybe you're going to have them stand up. That's a way to engage the audience. Maybe have them go to different sides of the room. That's not. There should be a fun aspect to this. Now, you never just have them do something randomly. If I said, everyone stand up and clap, 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 sit down. Okay, today we're going to talk about anxiety. What? It has to be, they have to do something to prove something. Because if you have us do random things that don't correlate at all, they'll think there's no value in it. For example, a good example, I had everyone sit on the ground. Everyone sat on the ground. Get out of your chairs and sit on the ground. Or sit on the ground. Does it suck being stuck here? Some of you guys dressed up nicely, but you're not supposed to be here. At some point, what do you do? I just asked the question, what do you do? And what do you think they did? They all started to get up. I said, I realized someone put you down here. I asked for you to get down here, but you decided on your own to stand up for yourself. And some of you, it took a little bit longer because some people, but they got up. And you can stand up for yourself. And didn't it feel better being up here than it does down here? Now, if I'm talking about relationships, maybe you got put into a bad relationship. You got put into some toxic relationship. Maybe you didn't ask for your parents to get divorced. Come on, you were in a relationship, you didn't ask to be physically abused or emotionally abused. You didn't ask for that, but that's where you were. Come on, that is where you were. But where you were is not where you have to always be. Where you were does not have to be where you will always be, and you can stand up for yourself. No one has to tell you. No one has to tell you to leave that relationship. No one has to tell you to get out of that toxic mindset. No one has to tell you that you are enough. At some point, you will decide, I've had enough, I am enough, and I'll stand up for myself. What? Do you see what I can't have all the ideas, come on. But you have to just prove something. Okay, let me do it one time to you. Remember, I don't know, was it a cup? What it was? Let me make sure we're good on time here. This battery's good. Okay, cool. If I had a student come up to the front and hold this out, I'd say, how heavy is this? They say, well, it's not that heavy, it's kind of. I said, okay, could you hold this for 1 hour? They'd probably say no. I say, oh, but could you hold it for 1 day? They'd say no. Could you hold it for 1 month? They'd say no. I'd say, oh, but probably the longer you hold it, you can hold it for a year. They'd say, well, no, not at all. I said, because something that wasn't that heavy got heavier over time the longer you hold on to it. And this is what happens to a grudge. This is what happens to forgiveness. People say, I will never let it go. I'll never let it go. And they hold on to it. They hold on to that bitterness. I'll never forget what my dad said to me. I'll never forget how that teacher treated me. I'll never let it go. And something that was not that heavy gets heavier over time, and you're the only one that's holding on to it. Just because you hold on to it doesn't make you stronger. Now, I could have the whole class do that. It could get a little, I don't think that that's a good idea, but I think maybe just one person. You can have one person represent the whole audience, and that's engaged. That will still count. Okay. AG stands for attention getter. The E stands for, okay, now there's 2 V's here. The first V is visual. When we talk about stacking, I could have that person, I'm engaged him, I've had him come up and be the demonstration, but he's also using the water bottle as the visual. Obviously, I'm not talking about water. I'm talking about relationships. Do you see how that goes? Everything goes back to my message. Okay. I got a new idea, but I'll save that for another video. Other than, I know you guys are going to say slides. Slides are fine, because sometimes I got to see it. I have to see something. You need a visual in your speeches because I've got to be able to see it. Raise your hand if you're a visual learner. Is that you? If you're a visual learner, okay, then you know you've got to be able to see it. I got to see some sort of slide or graph, picture, something. I got to see something. Now, this is one that people struggle with the most. Even we just did our political speeches. Some of you are going to be doing that coming up. They struggle with the visual. That's the thing that just always gets left. And I'm challenging you. Find something. For example, you said people say keys to communicate. Communication is a key to success. But if you did that, you said, everyone take out your keys. Well, now you're engaging everybody. Take out your keys. Look at them. Now it's a visual. Now you're stacking. You said keys give you access. Because you have access to, with that key, you can get inside of what that door holds. What are the keys that you have? Today I'm going to give you the 3 keys to breaking the cycle. The first key is, and then whatever the key is, and maybe actually have them point to 3 different keys. Or I could actually use that same visual and say, what your house key doesn't get you into your car. Your car key doesn't get you into your house. Come on, your mail key does not get you into your car. They're used for different things, and maybe you've been using the wrong key. You're at the right door, but you've been using the wrong key. Does that make sense? I've got to be able to see it, making those connections. And now I'm going to give you 3 keys to breaking the cycle today. Boom. If you're using PowerPoint, I'm not a fan of PowerPoint. You've never seen me use it. But if you use PowerPoint, it should be all pictures, more pictures, more pictures. Maybe if you're using 20 pictures, awesome. As you're clicking through your speech and talking, maybe say you're speaking for 5 minutes and you use 20 pictures and you're just going through those pictures and you're setting the scene, whatever the case is, that could be really cool. A lot of times people will use 1 or 2 slides and they'll pack it with information. Our eyes can read faster than you can speak. I saw yesterday that most people can read about 200 words a minute, which means I've already read everything on that slide. Now it's old news, and now I've got to re-listen to you talk about it. I've already stopped listening. I've stopped listening because I already read it. There's no reason. You have to ask yourself, how can I have less words? Maybe I might have a picture with 1 word that says break. Okay, ooh, yeah. Or I might have one picture that has the word break. The next picture has breakdown. The third picture has breakthrough. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, I don't need 1,000 words on a picture. Who am I talking to? Okay, graphs, pictures, slides, whatever. If you are now, I always give the example, if Micah got up here and Micah has this really cool goat head that she got off of, Michael got off of the internet, and it's this really cool goat head. He's going to give a presentation about the Illuminati. Can he pass that around during his speech? Because why? Yeah, it's distracting. Have that goat head up here, whatever you're going to do, but don't pass it around. I've been in speeches, I've graded speeches where I didn't even get to see the visual. I didn't even get to see it. I'm the one that's giving you the grade. It's too distracting. Same thing with pictures. If you're going to be handing pictures around, don't do that. Have the pictures on the projector. I've also seen this, where people will take their phone and they'll just kind of show, this is not effective. This is not effective. This is not a great visual. This is a horrible visual. We can't see what's on that phone, bro. Put it on the projector. Or you can do handouts. You can print out a sheet of paper and give us all to us, or print out pictures and let everybody have it. That works as well too. But we've got to be able to see it, whatever that it is. Next, okay, let's go back. AG stands for, the E stands for, the first V stands for, here's the second V, value. I think people struggle with this one too, but this one actually is the easiest one out of all 6. Let me go back though, I just got a good idea. Let me go back, visual, okay. If I'm talking about breaking the cycle, I should be literal. I should be very literal. What has a cycle? Well, bicycles, those are cycles. There's also a washer dryer, that's a cycle. Also, I think about the seasons, the 4 seasons, those are cycles, okay? Be literal. Be very literal sometimes with these. And you're comparing it, a lot of times this is what you're gonna do for deeper meaning for sure, but even in your visual, you're comparing something we don't know to something we do know. Remember the example I gave you all about, the last speech was about the car, and you go get your oil change, the light comes on the oil change, you never say, hey, can you change my light? Okay, I want you to turn the light off. And they'll say, what? I need to get an oil change, but I don't want to get an oil change, I just want you to change the light. Okay, well, the light is just an indicator. The light is not what's actually wrong. You're trying to fix what's wrong, but too many people try to change the light and not change what's wrong. If I'm talking about breaking the cycle, I've got to show you something that actually happens in cycles and why we need to break them. Maybe there's some good cycles, but maybe there's also some bad cycles. My dad did this, and his dad did this, and now I'm doing this. My mom did this. How many people from broken homes have now broken homes? Well, that's not everybody, that's true, because they decided to break the cycle. Okay, value. Value is the easiest one. You just gotta tell me why this is important. Just tell me, why is this is important because, this applies to you because. You would only have one attention getter, and if you guessed it, this is your dynamic conclusion, but you have several points of value If you have 3 points, then you should tell me why it matters. The first reason, for example, if I'm talking about breaking the cycle today, and I'm giving you keys, if I wanted to do that same thing about breaking the keys, one value said, this matters because this applies to you because you've been at the right door, but you've been using the wrong key. Boom. That's it. A lot of times, if you had a key and you're trying to get in, at some point you're thinking, man, I'm never going to get in. That's not true. It's the right door. It's the wrong key. This applies to you because you've been in the right relationship, but you've been doing it. You've been communicating the wrong way. This applies to you because if you keep communicating the wrong way, the right relationship will be the wrong one, whatever the case is. Well, however you want to do that. But you just plainly say, this applies to you because, this matters to you because, this affects you because. Just, I want to know, how does that apply to me? There's got to be some value for me. Boom. Me, the audience. Next one's a little bit harder, deeper meaning. But you guys already did this. We already did this. Remember we did the 3 levels deep, the 5 different cups? You're taking some sort of something and you're comparing it to life. Why? You said, well, sir, this isn't a motivational speech. I'm not giving a motivational speech. I'm speaking at a wedding. I'm speaking at a funeral. I'm speaking at graduation. That's the perfect place. If you can talk about life, even for a little bit, making those connections, that will instantly make you relatable. And many of you said at the very beginning of the semester, you want to be relatable. I don't understand everything about mitochondria. I don't understand everything about jet propulsion algorithms, whatever the speech was about. Whatever the speech is about, most times everybody in the audience won't know about that, but we do know about what? We know about life. We know about rejection. We know about heartache. We know about procrastination. We know about anxiety. We know about giving up. We know about getting back up. And if you can make just even 20 seconds of your speech dedicated to giving a life lesson, people will say, wow, I needed to hear that. You've done this. Remember in a movie or in a song, have you ever heard something and you say, man, I needed to hear that. That's what deeper meaning is. It's that little thing, that little life nugget, that little gem, that little life lesson that says, boom, I needed to hear that. That was for me. Deeper meaning is just a life lesson. It's a life lesson. And you're comparing it to something about life. Remember, I talked about the seed. And come on, remember, think back. I talked about the seed, and I said, a seed, you have to put it in the ground. And is it planted or is it buried? There's a difference. Because it's in darkness. And some people will go through their life thinking they're in darkness and that they're buried, but they're actually planted. The seed needs to go in the ground. And maybe you feel that you're just underground and you're just thinking, why am I here? Why am I in darkness? But you needed to be there in order to grow, the same as the seed. The seed has to break open. Now the seed is at a breaking point. Remember I said the seed's at a breaking point. And maybe you're feeling all these things are happening. I just can't take it. I'm at my breaking point. But watch this. What happens to the seed? The breaking point is the growing point. When you feel that you are breaking, some things have to break. That mindset had to break. That attitude you keep holding on to had to break. That anxiety you refuse to let go has to break. You're not, come on, you're not buried, you're planted, and your breaking point is your growing point. Do you see? That's not even my whole speech. I could actually keep going with this metaphor about the groundbreaking going through, planting leaves or whatever. But just even for 30 seconds, even for 30 seconds, even if I was talking about Christopher Columbus, I might do something breaking the cycle. If I was talking about Christopher Columbus, I could do the speech, breaking the cycle, because if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. It's a cycle. Okay. You can do deeper meaning with stories. You've heard me tell lots of stories before. It could be a metaphor. It could be a quote. No quotes, not for that. In fact, in your attention getter, you could have used a quote, that's fine. We didn't mention that up there earlier. Or analogy, very similar. Some sort of life example. But every time, for example, if you said, I've heard different bad examples. They were good examples on what they learned, but you got to connect it to us. For example, if you said, my father walked out on me at the age of 3, he walked out on our family, and then at the age of 7, I decided to be the man of the house. Well, that's half the life lesson, because that's all literal. You've got to vacillate back and forth between literal and figurative. I might compare that to, well, how long did that take? That took you 4 years. You walked out in 3 and it took you 4 years, 7. There's a process. This means it takes time. And I want you to remember that some things take time. Have you ever tried to put Hot Pockets into an oven or Hot Pockets into a microwave, and if you don't leave them in there long enough, they're cold in the middle and they're not effective? I had to think of that 4 years as my Hot Pocket process, where it took time, but it took the right amount of time for me to be thawed out of the cold bitterness of him leaving, and actually had to endure the heat. There's a process. And today I want to challenge you that whatever you're going through, I said that wrong, whatever you're going through, be okay with the time it takes for you to mature in the process. I could not have been the man at 3 years old, or 4 years old, or 5 years old, or 6 years old, but at 7 years old, I was ready, because I had seen enough life. I'd seen enough life, and those 4 years were growing years, developing years. And today, friends, however long it takes you to get your degree, be okay with the time it takes, because it takes that amount of time for you to get there. Okay. Yeah, you gotta go back and forth. I could have done a Hot Pocket. I could have done a diamond, right? Because diamonds take pressure. Diamonds take time. Does that make sense? I could have done anything. I could have done the butterfly, where the butterfly has to go through caterpillar. In fact, I've told you this before. I've never seen a caterpillar hanging with the butterfly. Even though they started the same, I've never seen that, because the butterfly knows I used to be that, but that's not where I'm going. I now have new skills. The butterfly can fly, the caterpillar can't. Which means maybe we've got to stop hanging with people in our old stages. TC, here we go. Dynamic inclusion. If I go back to that life lesson, he might hold up, if you want to stack it, he could also hold up a shoe, and he could engage the audience. He said, hey, I need a volunteer. I want you to be able to put the shoe on. Now, let's say the shoe is size 7, and this is the size shoe he wore. Or, well, I guess he wouldn't wear a size 7. Well, even though, yeah, he wore a size 7 at 7. Let's say he was 7 years old, he wore a size 7. This is big feet, I guess. He had somebody try to come up, okay? An adult male or adult female usually is not going to wear a size 7. Now, what does he say? He says, well, you tried them on. They used to fit at one point, but now they don't fit. And you've got to let go what you outgrow. Dynamic inclusion. Okay. It has to be dynamic. It has got to be dynamic. No more in conclusion. Respectfully, you are not 5th graders. Don't ever say in conclusion. Now you can say, before I close, you can say, I want to leave you with this one last idea. You can want to say, you can even say, I want everybody to stand up and I want to leave you with this. That's fine. But we understand that the speech is coming to a close based on how you say it. And it was at that point I realized I could break the cycle, and my breakdown could actually lead to my breakthrough. Today, let me ask you, what are you willing to break? Are you willing to break your habits? Are you willing to break some of these friendships that's been holding you back? And you keep going back to that friendship. You keep going back to that relationship. You keep going back to that addiction. But I wonder if you're willing to break it before it breaks you. And you'll find there's life, beautiful life, outside of that dark cycle. Thank you. Do you hear? I can hear that it's coming. Okay. I can even do the same thing. My voice is trailing down, but I could also go up. Dynamic inclusion has to end with a bang. This is the very last thing. This is the last thing. And people ask me, what's better? I mean, you got to start strong to reel us in, because some people, they might start flat and then they're trying to build up, but I actually don't even care because you never got me from the beginning. But the same is true for your dynamic inclusion. You can do all this really well, and if you end flat, it kills your speech. Think about movies you've seen where you're really into the movie, and at the end you're thinking, wait, what? That's how it ends? And now the whole movie has a sour taste in your mouth. Imagine going on a date. That person gets your attention. They're engaging, the visuals, they're fire, value, deeper meaning, life lesson, conversation, going back forward. And you go to their door, you're walking them, the end of the date is over, and you're thinking, okay, am I going to give this person a kiss? And instead of giving this person a kiss, they give you a fist bump and they fart and then they walk back into the house. You're not going on a date with that person anymore. Because even when they've gone, the fart is still in the air. You're walking back to your car with fecal particles in your nose. Is that too gross for you? I'm just trying to show you this is what it is when people say, all right, that's it. Well, that's my speech. All right, I'm done. I don't know, I'm just done. I'm sorry, I'm just done. I don't know. That's how you're gonna end the speech? No, finish strong. Even if you think you've been messing up, finish even stronger. Finish even stronger. Sometimes I trip over words. Sometimes I have an idea and it didn't go the way I want. Okay, bro, finish even stronger. How can you do this? Similar ways to you did a attention getter. You could end with a quote, you could end with a story, you could end with a fact. There's this word I want you to write down, callback. You could end calling back. Comedians use this. Comedians will do lots of callbacks where they'll tell a joke and then they'll keep going their set and then they'll go back to that same joke and tell a little bit differently, or they'll go back to that joke again and go back to that joke because it gets a laugh. They'll call back to it. I had a student who started her speech with a big number 13 on her person, a big button, I guess. She says, did you know that 13% of foster care students will go to college? Only 13%. She says, I'm one of that 13%, and I hated being a number. I hated being a statistic. I hated this. And she goes through this whole thing talking about her mom, her biological mom, and all this. At the very end, she says, but now I know I'm on the right path, and there's one number I didn't tell you. She takes off the 3 off of the button, and now it's just a 1%. She says, of the 13% that go to college, only 1% of them actually graduate. She says, in this fall, I will be a part of that 1%. And where I hated being a number, where it was something I hated, today it is something that I celebrate. Maybe you're not looking at the numbers all the way, because the numbers are just numbers, but you're not just a number. The numbers don't tell the full story. The numbers don't know your name. Today, remember, whatever statistic they try to put on you, the number is not your name, and your name doesn't tell you your full story. What path will you take today? And maybe you'll find that you're more than just a number. Do you see? 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 Okay. Well, that's it. That's it. That's my speech. How can you have all these things and stack? If you're only speaking for 2 minutes, then maybe your attention getter and your engaging audience are going to have to combine. But whatever the value is important. A lot of people have been leaving off this value and this visual. We got to see it. We have to see it. Remember, as I told the class, I said, imagine that you're going on a date and your friend says, well, I can't see how's he look? How's he look? And you go to the Instagram, there's no pictures, just sunshines and rainbows and glow sticks. There's no pictures. You don't want to go on this date because you haven't seen it. The visual is a proof. All this is proof. The engaging audience is proof. The visual is proof. The value is proof. The deeper meaning is proof. When I say prove it to me, prove it to me. Prove it to your audience. I'm going to prove it again. In fact, for every single point that you have, you should have 2 proofs. If you have, this is a point, this is the point that you're trying to make, this is a proof. Maybe it's engaging, and maybe it's some deeper meaning, or maybe you're going to use a visual, and maybe you're going to engage, or maybe you're going to use value, and maybe you're going to use deeper meaning. You can't say, I'm going to get their attention with a proof. That doesn't, you've already started. This is now your point. I think I have to do the points on a different video. But the points, let me just say it this way, the points are actually little small messages. They're also the same. If the whole speech is about breaking the cycle today, well, the first step, or the first key, because I was using keys earlier, talking about relationships, maybe the first way to break the cycle is acknowledge the cycle. Maybe that's it. Maybe acknowledge cycle. Hey, I had to do this. This was a real late. I had to realize every time I'm in a low point in my life, Mr. Harris, every time I was in a low point in my life, I would find some random person, it seems, who was also in a bad point of their life, and we would become friends and build this friendship up. And when that friend felt fulfilled, he or she would then go off and get married and then leave me out of the equation, not friends with them anymore. I'm back to a low point. I find another friend at a low point and build this person back up. This has happened a couple of times, I'm embarrassed to say. But I'll tell you, at some point I said, you are on a cycle. You're on a cycle. Break the cycle. Acknowledge. The first step is you have to acknowledge I'm in a cycle. No one in your family has ever gone to college. No one in your family has ever gotten a degree. You have to acknowledge what are the implications. I was trying to find that word. Implications of that process. Acknowledge it. Yes, everyone in my family has anxiety. My goodness, everyone? Everyone in my family has depression, or everyone in my family suffers from alcoholism. Everyone, I am in the middle of a cycle I didn't choose to be in. The first step is you got to acknowledge it. Let me prove it to you when you do acknowledge it or when you don't acknowledge it. Does that make sense? Maybe when you acknowledge it, this happens. Maybe I can engage your audience. When you don't acknowledge it, this happens, and I might give a value or a visual or something like the case. You got to acknowledge the process. You got to acknowledge the cycle. The next thing is, when you first acknowledge it, now you can realize that you can break it. Or maybe break it's the third one. Maybe acknowledge it, and then maybe you have to acknowledge that maybe you have to want something better. I'm in the cycle, but now I've decided I want better. And then maybe, acknowledge the cycle, realize there's something better than the cycle, and then my third point be breaking the cycle. And then actually in that third point, I tell you how to actually break it. I could do it that way. Yeah. Okay. This is on you. This is canon. This is what I expected.